Order Stow City Council's Planning Committee meeting for February 6, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Herman.
Here.
Fioca.
Here.
Feldman.
Here.
Baranek.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
The minutes are approved. Planning Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Just a couple quick updates on projects around the city. Finally got some word back from Dick's Sporting Goods that they intend to open in mid-March. I don't know if they're going to be doing a ribbon cutting or anything, but we'll be sure to let everyone know. I was also informed that Miller's Landing Phase 2, they're working through their engineering permit right now. They intend to start tree clearing over the next couple months, so if you're getting calls about it, that's the reason. And then next week on Tuesday for Planning Commission, we expect to have a pretty good turnout for two projects, one for the sheets at Stow and Fish Creek, and the other is for on Kent Road in front of the Stow Glen retirement for sheets, Chick-fil-A, and two retail buildings. And then we just got the first draft of the code update of the new code. So Sarah and I are taking our time and reviewing that with the consultant. We're planning on having another steering committee meeting in mid-March, so we'll keep everyone posted. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our Planning Director? Mr. Fioca.
Mr. Cowan, I know we already spoke about this, but maybe for those that may not have heard, the update across the street.
Yeah. At the old tire shop, Flynn Tire will be moving at the corner. So I don't know when they intend to open, but they're already looking into sign permits and building permits.
Mr. Feldman.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. So, Mr. Cowan, real quick, I don't know if somebody got wind of this at the city. I don't know if I filled out the reporter problem, but the Dicks on the backside driving by Aldi's, you look to the left on the north side fence, there's trash everywhere.
Yep.
Can someone do something?
Yeah. Molly, the zoning inspector was out there like the day after we got wind of it. I contacted the property owner, so he said it's going to get cleaned up.
Who is the property owner?
My contact is Mr. Rob Risman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it is cleaned?
They're working on it.
Not yet. Actually, Dick's is going to clean up all their construction debris. That's most of it. And then the property owner is going to clean up the rest. They do it on a monthly basis, but it got worse because of the snow. But they've been notified. They say they'll have it done within a week.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I just drove by and looking to my left, I'm going, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, it looks horrible. So if someone can keep an eye on that, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Herman.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Cowan, Miller's Landing, you say they're indicating that they're going to start clearing for phase 2. I know when Pulte was in here and we approved the model home for phase 1, obviously it's a model home for both phases. They had indicated that sometime in February. Do you know or can you find out, have they started taking purchase orders, or do they have any signed purchase orders for properties to be constructed yet?
I don't know that. They've pulled permits to start building the homes. I don't know if they have those. I don't know if people have bought those properties yet, but I can look into it.
When they pull those permits, are they for a specific parcel? Or
Yes.
So how many permits have they pulled so far?
I have to double check. A handful, 3 to 4 so far.
Okay. That was my only question.
Yeah.
It's really if they pull permits, and if they were, I would assume with permits being pulled that they probably do have secured. Is the model home up and running? Do you know?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay. I know that he said he had indicated sometime in February, so I would assume with the permits being pulled. That's all I would know.
Yeah. I meant to drive by today to check it out, but I didn't get the chance. So
Okay.
I can let you know next time.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to our business item 25-059.
All right. This project is for a new radio tower, city property. Looking at the map, you have Stowe Service Center, you have the post office, the bottom of the screen. The radio tower will be right next to the water tower within the fenced-in area. This is a conditional use for a public utility substation, and we're here for site plan and a variance. So site plan, the tower will be on the northwest corner of that fenced-in area where the water tower is. To the nearest residential property to the north, it'll be 75 feet from that property line. To the dwelling itself will be about 185 feet, and then approximately 420 feet to Darrow Road. The purpose of the tower is to transfer the equipment from the water tower to the radio tower, since the water tower will be painted. So transferring that equipment will make that process go a lot smoother. The tower itself will be 195 feet in height. Our code does state that basically any tower that's over 100 feet has to be approved by Planning Commission and Council. And this is just zooming in on the site plan. Blue circle is water tower, red triangle is the radio tower. Then the supplemental regulations for this use. Number one, in a residential district, they have to be or shall be permitted when it is essential for distribution of service, which it is. Site locations should offer natural and man-made barriers. That is, it's a should offer, so it's a suggestion. Number three, storage of materials shall be completely enclosed. There will be no outdoor storage. And number four, they have to be at least 100 feet from a dwelling or residential district, or be adequately screened. So a variance is requested to be within 75 feet of the nearest residential district. So it's a 25-foot variance. That's all I have for this. I know that the funding for the tower was already approved by council, but this is just to take it through the approval process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Any questions or comments? Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan, I guess for the location purposes, obviously with the variance, the specific location is probably the most ideal location given where, I guess, you know, what's the service being provided for the current stuff that's mounted to the
there are communication equipments on top of the water tower. There's meter readers, microwaves for 911 services, and other communication equipment.
And what's the height of the water tower currently?
I think it's about 150 feet in height.
Okay, so this will be above the height of that.
Yeah.
My next question, would the water tower end up interfering with anything? But my guess is obviously this is the location that's going to be the easiest to relocate from the water tower down to this tower, given otherwise there might be additional costs and additional wires to move it anywhere else.
Correct.
Mr. Wren, that might be an answer for you.
Yep, correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Feldman.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Where's the residential district?
So it's already in a residential district. The property itself is zoned R2, but the nearest residential district past that is this home that's just north of the water tower. This is its own property. So 75 feet to the nearest property line here. So that's where this property is.
So just a quick question. You weren't here, Mr. Mayor or Mr. Wren. Didn't the city have an opportunity to buy that property a number of years ago? I think it's prior than we were on council on 220, correct?
Yeah, I don't remember the specific year, but we did have the opportunity to buy it and presented that to council.
And we didn't.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Would that have changed this? It still would have been within 100 feet of a residential district because the property that's sitting on, you said, is zone residential, right?
It is residential.
But even
it's kind of a
if we purchased
conflicting.
that property, it wouldn't have, if it's still zoned, it wouldn't have made a change that you still would be here asking for a variance if we didn't change the use of that property, if we had bought it, correct?
It's kind of a conflicting requirement since it's already on a residentially zoned property. I mean, without argument, we'd be looking at a 0-foot variance for that, you know? So not sure if that would still apply or not.
Thank you.
Mrs. Coffey.
I'm not on this committee, but can I still ask? Mr. Wren, I think I'd asked do you know if these, the fire bureaus, they said that was rejected just because of these checklists? Do you know if they've addressed the items?
They did.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was a fault of mine. I think I uploaded a previous version. I do have,
perfect.
I can get everyone copies of the approved comments from fire before the council
That's
meeting.
all I wanted to know. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, do we have a motion to move this on to tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
That's 3 yes, so the motion carries. We're now in our public comment period. If anyone would like to give public comment regarding planning, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, I call to order the Roads and Safety Committee of Stow City Council to order. The time is 5:42. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
McIntyre,
Here.
Coffee,
Here.
Reel,
Present.
Herman.
Here.
All right, you have before you the minutes of October 10th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Noes, abstentions. Those minutes stand approved. City officials reports. Mr. Wren, can you kind of give us an update where we stand? Obviously, we had a freezing rain event last night. How we're still standing. I know at our last meeting, Mr. Brooker had indicated that if we continue with a mild snowfall and everything else, we should be fine to make it through the snow and ice season. However, if we have other events, you do have a contingency. Where do we stand after the events of last night?
Yep, we started with well over 4,000 ton on hand, and probably down to 3,800, which is good for multiple storms. And then we've also secured multiple contingency plans with ODOT and the City of Hudson. So I don't see any issues getting through the remainder of the year. We should be fine.
Have we already received all the deliveries that have been allocated for us this year, or are we anticipating more deliveries?
We have more deliveries to come as well. I'm not sure of the exact tonnage off the top of my head, but they were on Tuesday. Mr. Brooker and I had a discussion about they're looking for additional trucking companies, since that seems to be where this is failing this year.
So trucking has been. Are we the only community as
No.
far as we're part of a consortium for this, correct? And that who all does that involve?
Oh, there's like 75 entities. University of Akron, City of Akron does part of theirs, Talmadge, Hudson. It's basically.
Have any of the surrounding communities been affected by this trucking and their salt deliveries?
Mhm. Yeah, not this past storm, but the one before, when we were having the shortage, Talmadge was not sold in 91, because that's how low they were. So everybody's been affected by it. It's not just us.
Okay. And then my other question, and maybe a question for you, or maybe a question for the engineer. On Kent Road, I've noticed down towards the east end that it looks like there's a company that's been out there taking lanes, making some sort of adjustments. Looks like the catch basins or something. Do we know what that is?
It's AT&T, but Michael can speak more to it than I can.
And those are the AT&T manholes getting the final adjustments that were part of the giant paving project.
These are the ones that could not be done because of who owned them as a part of the resurfacing project.
That's correct.
When are they slated to be completed?
They're completed.
They're all completed?
All completed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Wren or the city engineer? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the consideration of business items. The only item we have on the agenda tonight is ordinance 25-60. Chief Stone.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. In 2017, the fire department adjusted our billing fees to reflect the levels of billing that were reasonable for the services that we provide. And at that time, we looked into our neighboring agencies and realized that we were well behind other agencies in the area, and decided to adjust to match those. The billing fees I'm referring to are when we transport patients to the hospital. After reviewing our current fees and billing practices, we're back there again. We've determined that our levels of billing are low when compared to other fire departments in the region. I asked our agency, our billing agency, and other Summit County chiefs to find out what their rates were and what their fee structure was, and found out that we were in that spot. And so the plan that we put in place back in 2017 was to affix a fee that would put us at the top of the pile, if you will, at that time. And then we added on, if some of you might remember, Mike Razor added on a 2% annual increase. Well, we thought that would be adequate, but the economy has changed enough that it has flown past us. So we'd like to increase our fees again to get caught up. The fee structure that we are looking at is equal to what 11 other fire departments are doing in Summit County right now. I do want to point out, though, before I mention the rates, that we use soft billing practices. Our residents will not even notice this. So our soft billing is we bill your insurance if you're a resident of Stow, and whatever your insurance pays, that's what we accept. If you're a non-resident, transient, maybe at the hotel, maybe you get into a car accident here in Stow, it is otherwise. It is regular billing practices. So those are the only customers that will realize any increase in the cost. We also have a hardship clause that we have in place that if somebody who is, in fact, a transient or not a resident is unable to pay due to economical financial reasons, there is a way that they can appeal and ask for the hardship to be forgiven. So our proposed fee schedule is we have 3 different levels of billing. BLS, which is basic life support, which is not real common for us, but it's our second most common. It is $850 to transport. ALS is our most common, it's $1,000, and then ALS2, which is a transport. ALS is when you have an IV, maybe a heart monitor. ALS2 is when you have those items, and we have to give 2 or more drugs. And so that will increase to $1,200. And we've also increased the mileage to 16. That's what the 11 other agencies currently are using in Summit County. Other fire departments around us that aren't there will be catching up also. And so we would like to do that to realign ourselves with these other departments and increase our billing fees. Now, I do want to remind you that the billing fees, I believe, finance can answer this better for me, it is earmarked for use back into the EMS program. We purchase ambulances, we buy equipment, I believe, and pay for the paramedic staffing, I believe, with that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Stone. As far as you say this is soft billing, so you're saying the city doesn't send whoever was transported, they won't receive a bill from the city for these fees. Rather, it goes to their insurance company?
It goes to their insurance company. If they do receive a bill, we have Jen Straka, who is our EMS billing supervisor, and she is able to answer any questions for people, and she'll redirect them to our third-party billing agency and to correct any issues that might arise. We typically don't have any issues with that. Occasionally something falls through the cracks and we get a phone call saying I received a bill. Typically it's an explanation of benefits that people receive and they don't understand what they've received. And we just explain that as a resident, you've already paid your taxes, you don't have to go any further.
So I guess with this type of billing practice, what effects does that have, not necessarily with the city, but as a practice? I would assume this is a practice for a lot of fire departments.
Oh yes. I would say every fire department in the county that I'm aware of, and many other fire departments throughout the state, it's common across the country that this is how it works. We are not the first to do it. We modeled ourselves when we had our levy in 2000 for this. We modeled ourselves after neighboring departments. I believe we probably modeled ourselves after Cuyahoga Falls, who already had this on the books.
And the levy there's a permanent levy in place for EMS, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, the one that was passed on November 7th of 2000.
And what is some of that levied money used for?
Purchase of ambulances, which are not cheap anymore. I believe it might have been, and if somebody who was here at that time can answer better for me, because I was trying to find language on it today, I believe it is earmarked for just the part. It might be partially staffing, but it's mainly equipment. The purchase of the heart monitors that we just allocated for last meeting, which is almost $300,000.
I guess the reason for the whole underlying part of this question is, are you aware, I guess, are there any studies out there of what effects that type of billing practice has on where you're saying they don't really feel it, but they may feel it in increased insurance rates, right? If it's going through the insurance, do you know what kind of effect that has on their insurance rates or the insurance industry as far as that practice goes?
I don't know that it does, because we still have to accept whatever they pay. And there's the reasonable customary service that the insurance companies always recognize. So, for instance, if we bill somebody who has Medicare or Medicaid, we see a very small fraction of what we actually bill for. I don't know the actual dollar amount, but it's pennies by comparison. It's very small. A lot of the insurance agencies just have a fee. This is what we're going to pay, and we have to accept that. We rarely will ever find an insurance agency that will pay us what we have asked.
Okay, and as far as if this fee isn't increased, we're not going to see a change. There's not going to be a decrease in the level of service provided by the units.
Absolutely not.
Okay. And then I guess what I forgot my question, but I'll open up. Is there any other members of the committee that have any questions regarding this piece of legislation? All right, seeing none, I will make a motion to move this on to tonight's city council meeting.
Go to other members of council. I'm not on the committee.
Well, if there's, yeah, the floor's open for questions.
Okay, floor is open.
Questions, Mr. Feldman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McIntyre. So real quick, Chief Stone, I'm okay on fee increases. We've got a few on tonight's council agenda. I'm struggling a little with 54%, 54%, 65%. Why hasn't there been a gradual increase? That's question A. B is insurance companies never pay the full amount, right? So you're telling me we bill them and they'll pay the full amount? So two questions.
The first one, why have we not increased? We have. We have increased 2% a year. Mike Razor put that on in 2017 so that we would pace ourselves with the inflation, but we didn't see that inflation was going to result in what we have today. An ambulance back in 2015 cost us $140 some odd thousand, and now it costs us $296,000. So you can see the cost of doing business has just outpaced what we are charging people. So yeah, it's an increase, but the economy has surpassed us so fast that we have to do this. And all we're doing is we're just asking that we match what our neighbors are charging. So if you go and get in an accident over in Akron, you're going to get charged $1,200. For an ALS, you're going to get $1,000. This is exactly what Akron has. Akron, Copley, Fairlawn, Greentown, Hartville, Macedonia, Northfield, Reminderville, Richfield, not Springfield, they're just a shy less. Suffield and Uniontown are currently the ones that are charging these rates. And the neighbors around are close, and a lot of the chiefs that I've talked to are planning on doing this year as well, upping their fees to match. And some of the first agencies that did it were told, hey, you guys are way behind what is acceptable. And so we're just bringing ourselves up to what is considered an acceptable rate. What was your second question?
Well, I was kind of piggybacking Mr. McIntyre's. I can't stand insurance agencies. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me when you bill them, they'll pay the full amount? Because they rarely do.
No, we accept whatever the insurance agency bills, whatever they pay, rather, I'm sorry. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. It depends on the insurance agency. And sometimes it's a lot less. It varies. We do get a report every year that shows what each type of agency pays. And it's all over the place, to be honest with you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. One last question for me, Chief Stone. I thought about it. As far as if these fees don't increase, or by these fees being behind what you're saying of other communities, it's not causing the fire department to run a deficit in its operations, is it?
No, it is not. No, it will just aid us in gaining some fees that might help us with other needs in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Riley.
So yeah, this is just a point of clarification too on those percentages, Councilman Feldman. So the amount you're seeing in the ordinance is what was passed back in 2017. It's not the current rate that's actually charged because there's a 2% increase each year. So just real quickly, just because Chief Stone actually provided this to me, but there wasn't a place to put it in the actual ordinance. The first level is not $550 is what we're charging. The actual rate was $644.41. Then for ALS transport, it's $761.58, and then ALS 2 transport is $849.46. So it looks like a bigger jump than it actually is because there's that 2% annually, and that 2% still remains in this ordinance as drafted. It's just I wanted to correct that real quick, that it wasn't a jump from $550 to $850. It's a jump from like $644 to $850, and the way I listed it before.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification because I based it on those numbers. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion? I think I had a motion to move this on to tonight's council agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Noes. 25-60 will appear on tonight's city council agenda. Now comes the part of the meeting for public comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the Roads and Safety Committee at this time? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, no's, abstentions. We stand adjourned. Is this guy going to
Yeah. My name's Kyle Feldman. I'm the vice chair of the Finance Committee meeting. It is February 6th, 5:57 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Baranek, Feldman,
Here.
McIntyre,
Here.
Herman.
Here.
First item on the agenda is we have the approval of minutes. I'd like to make a motion from January 23rd, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Finance Director's report. Mr. Toppin.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. I do have a report this evening. Just so council knows, as well as the committee, we did have our income tax supervisor started this week. So she is in place and being trained. Next Monday, we will have our tax auditor in place and being trained, and hopefully be able to have them up and running as tax season quickly approaches us. Just some closeout numbers that I wanted to present to you this evening. I know back in October, we had informed council that our income tax was running about $1 million behind 2023. We had an atypical December, which improved our numbers. We actually finished only about 300,000 less than 2023. So we made an improvement, and that improvement was due to several businesses coming in and paying their whole year of 2024 estimates rather than paying them as the year went along. Ms. Wagner stated that there were several businesses that just came in and paid the whole amount of their estimated taxes in December, which is not typical every year. Obviously, we know property, what we receive from the county for property taxes increased this year due to the increase in everybody's property taxes. And also due to some restructuring of our banking accounts with Huntington, we were able to take advantage of some higher interest rates in return, which also increased our interest income that we received for 2024. I'm happy to say that our total debt decreased from $12.1 million in 2023 to 10.3 in 2024. So we are paying down our debt as fast as we can. We do have some restrictions on how fast we can pay the debt down. So our debt is still continuing to decrease, and happy to report that all funds ended 2024 in the black. And that is my report this evening. Obviously, we'll get to the capital closeout later in the business items, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Toppin. I've got a capital budget question, but I'll get to it when we get to that part of the. Can you just make sure you tell us, because in looking at the language we received on U.S. economy concerns, I feel like I read the same paragraph every year that, as repeated by the finance department in the past, The state of the U.S. economy remains uncertain and is possibly headed for a recession in 2024. I guess I just want to make sure we have 1 year that we haven't done well. I read this every year on budgeting, and then I get the gloom and doom, and then we always come back and go, oh, we're in the black. So I'm just trying to figure out, and to residents listening, accurately, are we going to get that information accurately from you?
Yes.
Great. I'll open it up to any other questions from council. Anybody else have questions or comments for the finance director? Yes, Mr.
It's not really a
McIntyre.
question, rather it's a comment to answer your question. You talked about that letter that you just read. If you scroll down to the bottom of that letter, that was respectfully submitted by former Director of Finance, Mr. Costello, and the former Director of Budget Management, Mr. John Earl. So that's not even a letter that's from the current Finance Department. So
Yeah, I'm just making sure Mr. Toppin, the new finance director, will make sure that language is accurate. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Consideration of business items. A, 25048, Mr. Wren.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. This is to replace our stump grinder. Our current model is a 2000. We average more than 120 stumps ground each year. The new model has tracks on it. Our current one is a tow behind, so we generally at times leave ruts when we're getting the machine to where it needs to go. This has tracks and also has a remote control capability, so the operator does not have to use. Currently, for lack of a better term, it's operated by hand. This would allow for a more safe distance for the person grinding the stump and not get hit with brush that is coming off. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wren. I'll open the floor up to not only the finance committee, but all members of council. Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Mr. Wren, you say obviously how many stumps that we typically grind a year. Is this type of machine is probably, it's more typical that this works off of an hour. It's like an hour counter, similar to some other pieces of heavy equipment. Do you
I'm
know?
sure, yeah.
How many, because some people don't realize it's hard to attribute hours to miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hours on a machine. How many hours do you think you typically, that urban forestry uses a stump grinder in a year?
Well, I mean, it depends on the size of the stump, but if you're doing street trees, then you could probably do 3 in an hour. If you're doing one of the larger trees in the parks or on city property, it could take you 3 to 4 hours for that tree. So, I mean, really, you would have to look at the science that I doubt we have of the diameter of the trees that we're doing. So it would be tough to say, but certainly over 25 years, it certainly has accumulated some hours on it. So
How many stumps do you say we typically do annually?
right around 120. Actually, we're starting to do more with our fourth member of urban forestry now. So because we never want them on their own when they're doing this. So with 3 people, we can now split up the crew 2 and 2. 2 can be cutting, doing the chipping, and the other 2 can be doing the stump grinding behind.
Okay, and this is a more economical approach than having like a barberton tree who we have doing some pruning. This is a more economical approach to this type of operation.
Yeah, the reason that the approach for the pruning works is because we were so far behind. We had so much volume to give them. So that's not always the case. People aren't going to show up to grind 3 or 4 stumps. They will, but they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. So because we can give barberton tree entire streets and subdivisions, that's what makes that work on a economy of scale.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. McIntyre. Anyone else? Do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-048 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Ordinance 25-049, Mr. Wren.
This is the brush chipper. This replaces a 1998 model. This is used constantly by our urban forestry department as well as our Parks Department. We currently have one version from the late 80s at Foxton, one version from the early 2007, I would say. And then this would become our primary. The 1998 version would go to Foxton, and then our 2007 version is either when we have two crews out or as a backup in case something were to go wrong with this. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Wren? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-049 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item C, ordinance 25-050. Mr. Wren.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. This is really a bookkeeping error or clerical error on our part. When the three pieces of equipment that Foxton turned in, we sometimes get the most clear information from the maintenance people when they're giving you all the different quotes. So this was already approved, but it was approved to the wrong vendor. So this is just assigning it to Deere & Company, which is the correct vendor. Happy to answer any questions.
So it's a correction, correct, Mr. Wren?
Correct.
Yep. Questions for Mr. Wren? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-050 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. I'd just like to make mention, before we move on to D, which is you again, Mr. Wren, I appreciate Mrs. Mottram's work on putting the capital expense purchase and checking for council that was on the budget. So thank you, Mrs. Mottram, for doing that and including it. More information is better. Item D, Mr. Wren.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. This is simply our Microsoft 365 license for the year. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Wren? Yes, Mr. McIntyre, go ahead.
The only question I have is, I guess, is there options for longer than 1 year that might be more cost? I just see it as kind of being more of a pain being a 1 year subscription than.
Yeah, well, I don't think they want to lock in a cost given over like a 5 year, you're correct. It'd be a lot easier if we could just do this 5 years at a time, but because of the ever changing technology and pricing, that's why we can't get anything longer than a year for a commercial business.
Are there other programs that we have that have multi-year subscriptions at least? And within those, like year two there's a built-in escalator to it over the life of the contract?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's not something that we can find with any other service provider other than.
Not with Microsoft.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Quick question, Mr. Wren. Council members will have access to Microsoft 365, correct?
Correct.
I was bugging Mrs. Mottram last night. I was in her office and I couldn't get on, so make sure AJ or two can make sure council members get access.
Mr. Feldman, I have all the faith in the world in you, but that might have been a you problem.
I have access. I got it.
Usually when I can't get on, it's definitely a me problem.
I'm sure it's user error. I get it, but I'm sure Mrs. Mottram, AJ do not want my text messages at whatever time that was, Mrs. Mottram. I apologize. All right, item E. Mr. Snavely.
We need to
I'm sorry. Thank you. I need a motion to move ordinance 25-051 onto tonight's council agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item E. Captain Staley.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Item E is a request for funding for Advanced Outdoors for our handgun replacement program. This program was part of our 5-year capital budget planning and was planned for 2025. So this matter is approved as part of the capital project and was a planned capital budget project. I have brought Lieutenant Miller, who is our master firearms instructor and armorer for the police department, to explain more about the program.
Thanks, Cap. So we are looking to replace all our duty pistols for the department. I don't think we've ever done it since probably in the early 90s when they went from wheel guns to actually go into our Glock Model 21, which we still currently have. So we're looking to replace that with what's called a Glock Model 45. It's a different caliber, so the numbers might skew you because a Glock Model 21 is a 45 caliber, but a Glock Model 45 is a 9mm. So we're actually moving that and trying to get up with more new technology to help our officers. Each of our Glocks, we're also getting the red dot system, the Hollison 509T, which will be mounted directly onto the weapon for sighting. We went to these for our rifles. Not the Hollison, but a red dot system through Aimpoint Pros. And the increase in, especially for like myself and others, the up close using a red dot system, his accuracy has really increased. So we're looking to do this the same with our pistols. We're also, with our Glock Model 45s, as part of this, in the end, we'll actually trade those in with Vance's and actually get some money back from them for it. It goes to a buyback program where our officers can then buy it from Vance's to get their own actual service weapon they first had when they were hired here. Currently, right now, we're at average about 18 years at each gun. Like I said, mine and the captain's is currently basically 25, 26 years old. Ours are 1999, so we'd like to change, just make the whole department do a new change and get them all new guns, new lights, or lights with also the red dot system. So I'll take any questions.
Real quick before I open the floor for questions to all council members, Lieutenant Miller, I certainly appreciated your ability to instruct as you had all council members down in the range, which that was educational for me and very good. I'd like to schedule that again. We've got some new council members, but that was a good session. And I appreciate your work down there. I think it's good for us to see. Sometimes we see these approvals, but when we're close to it, we can understand it a little better. So thank you for your work down and making sure the range is supervised, and you do a great job down there. Questions for Lieutenant Miller? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-052 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item F, Captain Snavely.
Thank you, sir. This next item is a request for funding for Hall Public Safety. Hall Public Safety is our upfitter, which upfits all our cruisers with the specialized police equipment. We have used Hall Public Safety for a number of years. They do an excellent job for us. As you obviously understand, it's critical that we keep our public safety equipment working so that we can respond to emergencies and provide adequate service to the citizens of Stow. We work diligently to ensure uniformity in all of our cruisers so that any officer can jump in any car and have it be set up similarly and ready to go and easy to use. They also provide, in addition to upfitting our new cruisers that are purchased each year, they also provide service to the fleet throughout the year. They also come yearly to recertify our radar units in all the cruisers. So those are some of the costs that would be covered under this blanket purchase order. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Captain Snavely. Questions for the captain? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-053 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item G, Captain Snavely.
Thank you, Mr. President. Then this next one is for our contract with the City of Macedonia for housing prisoners at their jail. The City of Stow contracts with a number of jails to hold our prisoners. Macedonia Macedonia Jail being our primary facility that we use. This funding will allow us to hold pre-confinement prisoners as well as prisoners that are sentenced to the jail by the judges. Because it is unpredictable as to when a judge will send somebody to jail, we need to have a blanket funding source in place to cover that. Over the last 5 years, these costs have been as low as $9,000 for a year and as high as $40,000 for a year. So it really does vary, but this would authorize the funds to allow us to continue using that facility. Happy to answer any questions.
I'll open up to the floor for questions, but I know I get frustrated on this one that we don't use our own jail. I like our jail, but I understand it takes personnel, which is a cost, which is whatever. So we've increased from 40,000, I think, to 50,000. So you're telling me in the last 5 years we've used as low as 9 and as high as 40?
Correct. Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Other questions for Captain On? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-054 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item H, Captain Snavely.
Me again. This one is for Claiborne Ford. Claiborne Ford, we have a long history of using Claiborne Ford to service our fleet. As I spoke to earlier, keeping the fleet in running condition and able to respond to any call necessary is critical for an emergency fleet. They do an excellent job in servicing and maintaining our fleet, and this would cover our costs for the year in maintaining our fleet. Happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to open the floor to any questions for Captain Snavely. Yes,
Mostly a
Mr.
comment.
McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Looking at the memo here, it looks like it kind of fluctuates. Looks like 23 was a really high year, but last year seems to kind of came down. Just, so I guess looking at what's this year's budgeted amount. I lost it here. So obviously we're going up, but it looks like, why would you, when you look at the memo and you look at, back in 22, it was 40 some thousand, went up to 65, then it went back down to 47. Now it's going up. Where do you attribute that ebb and flow of the cost of this?
Well, purchasing and maintaining the fleet for police department has been a challenge over the last few years since COVID, and we have obviously seen costs rise in all categories with significant inflation. We've had significant issues purchasing vehicles and then also getting parts and parts availability for servicing our vehicles. This has resulted in longer downtimes for some of our vehicles as they get replaced. And as I've spoke to in the past when asking for replacement vehicles, it's critical that we keep our fleet healthy. When we keep a healthy fleet, we see less service cost in maintenance and repair. We also buy long extended warranties because the nature of police business being hard on vehicles, we have found that pays dividends to have warranty work. So when we have vehicles that are newer and covered under warranty, obviously the service costs aren't as significant as the vehicles age and the repairs add up and they break. Obviously, it costs money to get them repaired. We can't let the vehicle sit in disrepair for any length of time. It's critical that they be repaired and back into the fleet. But the cost of repairs and parts and labor has gone up, and I think this budgeted allocation of funds is obviously necessary to keep us in good shape.
Yes, and if I understand, obviously this council and councils over the last several years have been very supportive of, keeping that fleet new. With that being said, if this council or if the city wasn't keeping that fleet new and purchasing and rotating these vehicles, this cost would probably be a lot higher than what we're seeing, even though it periodically goes up and comes down. If we're not rotating the vehicles like you just suggested, these costs would be even higher.
Absolutely, and we would have the added frustration of just not having more downtime and more cars in the shop. We have seen that in the past when we have tightened the belt on new vehicle purchases, the impact that that has on the health of the fleet and the downtime and, having to have vehicles towed, having vehicles break down in response to even some emergency calls in the past. So we do our best to avoid that at all costs and provide the best service possible. And Claiborne in general has done a great job for us for years servicing our fleet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-055 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item I, Chief Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. The fire department is asking for up to $103,000 to be used for turnout gear, testing, maintenance of the SCBA's, purchase of a hose and other equipment. This would all be from municipal emergency services. We had already budgeted $40,000 for 10 sets of replacement gear, turnout gear, that is on a 10-year cycle. And so we replace 10 sets every year. And then we have also asked for an additional 7 sets of gear for the new firefighters that we plan on hiring this fall and winter for the retirements that we're going to be having in the spring. In the past, we used to have more companies to purchase from, but these other companies have over time been acquired by larger agencies to acquire their competition, or the business just got closed after the pandemic. So some of the companies just aren't there anymore to purchase from. So that's why you see this large purchase order that we don't normally have. MES has proven themselves to be a very reputable and dependable company for us, and they reside here in Northeast Ohio. We use them. We have to do annual maintenance on our SCBAs where they come in and they do the bench testing and the maintenance of those bottles, and that's part of this cost as well. I'd be happy answering questions.
Thank you, Chief Stone. Let me open the floor. Questions? So just a quick question to summarize. You're on a cycle and you get however many. I remember seeing this ordinance a number of times.
We have 52 firefighters, and the NFPA requires us to only let their gear last 10 years. We have to buy new gear. We also have to have 2 sets of gear, so we try to get them on a 5-year rotation. So 10 sets of gear per firefighter or for the department every year will ultimately recycle all the gear for the 50 firefighters over a 10-year time.
Thank you, Chief. Questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-056 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item J, Mr. Toppin.
It's the resolution pursuant to 11906 for the progress and closure of projects.
Kelly, turn your mic.
Resolution pursuant to COS 11906 for the progress and closure of capital improvement projects for 2024. And you were presented in the documents with the table of the 2024 projects listed with budget, the project list amount, and the expense that has been paid out or committed for those different projects. I'd be happy to answer questions. Myself or Mrs. Twig will be able to answer the questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Toppin. I think it was smart to city council got this codified ordinances. I know we spend a lot of time on it, but I wanted to enter for the record, Mrs. Mottram, this comment, recommended budget practices, right? A framework for improved state and local government budgetings. On the Capitol, page 67, it said government should monitor, measure, and evaluate capital program implementation. Reports on capital project implementation should be prepared for decision makers and other stakeholders. So I appreciate your work. I think this is good. We know we're kind of in the infancy I know Mr. McIntyre, I think, was the president when we did this. Is that right, Mr. McIntyre, the capital budget?
Yes,
Yeah.
also the author of Chapter Codified Ordinance
Well,
119.
we appreciate your work as the author in the 119. I just think, and I'll shut up and move along. I just think it's good to have a vision to where we're going. But sometimes I think, we don't have to be. I don't want us to be afraid to move some things around, right? You hear council members talk to residents, whether it's about sidewalks, stormwater, and I don't think we should be afraid to move some things around. But I appreciate, Mrs. Twig, your work also. I know it's not easy, but it's good stuff. You too, Mr. Toppin. So question or comment?
Just to comment that this will improve this. Remember, we were caught in the year between the old system and the new system. So I think over this next year, you'll see some improvements to the reporting process for this.
Thank you, Mr. Toppin. Any other questions for Mr. Toppin on the capital improvement project? Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
It's not necessarily. I guess I'll start with Mr. Toppin, obviously as the sole custody of the funds of the city. Under stormwater management, it looks like council authorized $400,000 for that improvement project, the 4424 Forest Hill improvement project.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is it went over twice the amount that it was going to cost, but I don't ever recall anyone coming back to council to authorize more funds to that project. So I guess this may not be a question for you, but more for the engineering department. What was missed that we had to pay twice the amount that we encumbered for the project?
The original design was for an above ground or a detention basin within that right of way there. And after the final analysis, we decided to go with an underground storage chamber, which would eliminate the need for being close to the right of ways with a detention facility, the need for maintenance obligations of the detention facility, and the proximity to residents. We felt an underground storage chamber could have the additional capacity needed to hold a larger storm event. And so we felt that was the best route to take in that area.
Okay, and I guess why didn't anyone come back to council for the additional funds? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but the legislation that approved this was probably in the amount of $400,000, correct?
Yeah, it was around there.
So I mean, who authorized to spend over twice the amount? It wasn't council.
I don't have the legislation in front of me, but I would assume that the legislation came along with an engineer's estimate of 400,000, but it was to go to bid and award for this project.
So it sounds like we might need to change our practice, because that seems like that keeps it away from coming back to council for additional funds. Is that what I guess I want to understand is that what the bid and awarded amount was?
That was the awarded amount.
Is there anything I guess from a competitive bidding standpoint, is there anything in that practice that indicates awarding projects that come in more than 10% over the engineer's estimate?
Well, they have to be within 20%, but if they redesigned the project after coming to council when it was going to be above ground instead of underground, then their estimate would be based on that new design.
Okay, but the 400,000 was based off the above ground system that council approved.
Correct.
So then it was a completely different system. Why wouldn't it come back to council then? It's not what council authorized. Council authorized an above ground system. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is that's a lot of money to go over, and council wasn't even aware of it to spend that much money over. And that's more, even so, that's more than 20% over the engineer's estimate.
Well,
why did we award something? If we says we don't award over 20% of the engineer's estimate, why did we award this project?
Because I'm sure in the planning process, they decided to go from above ground to underground, and at that point, that changes the engineer's estimate. Mike can speak to that better than I can, but I'm assuming from a layman's term, that's exactly how it works.
Well, I guess for us, for me, I guess when these types of things come to us, I guess maybe council needs to take a look at the language instead of authorizing a blanket, do this, and this all in one fell swoop. Come back to us. If it's gonna be more than what we encumbered, you should always come back to us, regardless of the bid. We approved $400,000, so I would think that anything above and beyond that would require the approval of council. If that's not the case.
No, you did not approve $400,000. You approved approve the ability to go to bid and award. There's an estimate that goes with that, but I don't.
Was there an estimate provided to, because I believe under the capital improvement plans, it says an engineer's estimate is supposed to be provided.
An engineer's estimates with every engineering project is provided.
But was the engineer's estimate provided with the resolution?
I can't speak to that off the top of my head.
Okay. I mean, this is a question. It's just a new point at this point. It's just, I guess, for understanding moving forward. That's a lot of money to go over and that council's not even aware of. So, thank you.
Appreciate that, Mr. McIntyre. So we'll walk away from that, Mr. Jones, as just keep an eye on those open-ended ordinances and legislation. And maybe if being fiscally responsible, we could come back and, is that agreeable, Mr. Wren? You okay, Mr. Jones, with that?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what we went over and I look at the projects that were done for that amount over, we could have done one more project.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure that we're, I guess, better planning in this case would have been better. Maybe a deeper dive would have understood that we should have done an underground system ahead of designing for an above ground system. So thank you.
Yep. You're good, Mr. Jones? You understand where we're coming from? Got it. All right. Sounds good. Do I have a motion to move resolution 25-057 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. All right. I'm on item K. Captain Stavely.
Thank you, Mr. President. This next piece of legislation is a request to allow the mayor to enter into a MOU with 4 other agencies in Summit County. I'm happy to report that we were able to be part of a grant writing process and were awarded a grant under the Violent Crime Reduction Grant through the Bureau of Justice Assistance. 5 agencies are coming in collaboration together, including the City of Stow Police Department, and we're awarded $300,000 in grant funding to split between the agencies. Stow gets just under $72,000 allocated for that. We're excited for this opportunity. It will provide us with some equipment that will help us, and some budget for training and some budget for overtime, which will allow us to hopefully reduce violent crime and have an impact across the county as a whole of law enforcement. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Captain. So this is a pass-through because it's grant. Is that correct?
It is, and I should have mentioned that this is a 100% reimbursed grant.
Yeah.
So there is no funds needed from the city to make this happen.
Understood. Let me open the floor. Any questions? Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. With this piece of legislation, it looks like $36,130 is going to be allocated for the purchase and service of a certain vehicle-mounted GPS tagging system. If that's correct?
Yes, sir.
So I guess my question to you is, one, over the last 5 to 6 years, has there ever been a situation in which this would have been nice to have in order for something? And 2 is, how is the purchase of this going to reduce violent crimes for which this money is coming through a violent crime reduction program?
Absolutely. So the technology in question is called Star Chase. What it is a GPS tagging system that is used by officers to essentially tag a vehicle involved in a pursuit. We, over the last year, have been involved in numerous pursuits of vehicles, and that is an inherently dangerous situation every time it happens. So what this allows us to do is potentially tag that vehicle, back off of the pursuit while we continue to track its whereabouts, and follow up with investigative leads and potential to apprehend offenders in a more safer fashion. So that technology would have been useful. It has been around for a while. We have never had the funding to purchase it or look into it. However, some other agencies in Summit County have been using it and have reported excellent results from it. So we're excited to get a few units here and see if they're beneficial and see how it goes with that, especially on a grant basis that does not cost money directly from the city. The other funding will be used for training to enhance our officer skills in numerous techniques and tactics that would be beneficial to reducing crime in our community, as well as obviously the other 4 agencies across the county and their officers. And then that would cover the cost of the training, any travel costs or meal per diem or hotels is all looped in and allocated in this grant funding. And then there's also allocated funds for overtime patrols to allow for any targeted enforcement or hotspot areas, specifically in the city of Stow, that we might need to throw personnel at to solve a problem. So that funding will give us some flexibility to deal with any specific concerns for the city of Stow and help make the community safer.
Through this particular program, do they define, is there any definition of, what, there's a lot of violent crimes, but what is, I guess, our mind, so like what kind of violent crimes is this program designed to reduce?
Well, it is a myriad of things. There are specific lists of violent crimes in the ORC, too many to obviously list here today, but we are not the writer of this grant. We're a sub-grantee on this. So we are happy to be a part of it. We will report to another agency which wrote the grant, which will then report to the federal government the requirements of the grant. So some of the things that we got are not the same as what the other 4 communities got. So what that is a collaborative effort to approach Summit County's crime reduction as a whole by using a number of tools and tactics that may hopefully have an impact across the county. So us and these other agencies will be targeting different tactics and methods and reporting that. As with any grant, we have lots of reporting to do to report the effectiveness of our efforts, and I'm sure the federal government will then evaluate that, whether it was a successful use of funding for future.
So this program, I guess, the city of Stow has to provide a report on the effectiveness that it's had with the money that it's received up to, who's the main agency that wrote the grant?
Lakemore Village. The village of Lakemore is the main grantee on the grant.
And what reporting requirements do you have as a sub-grantee to Lakemore?
We'll report some budgetary items, and I don't know exactly the scope of it. I can speak generally from grants we've written in the past that we have in the past quarterly grant reports that we write for cost and budget, and then effectiveness of the program. I don't know the specifics on this grant, and the reporting level is reduced for a sub-grantee. The primary person will do the bulk of the reporting to the feds on this grant.
So with the remainder of this is my last question. With the remainder of the funding, you said it was a little over 72,000.
Just under 72.
So with the remainder of this funding, have you guys already budgeted the remainder of that money for the training that you referenced, and how much is going to go to overtime? And
correct. It is broken down in the grant award, and the reason you see 36,000 on this piece of legislation is because that is the cost of the equipment that will be outlaid for equipment. The rest is salary and budgetary items.
Can you send a copy of to the every member of the council, just so they understand how you guys are budgeting, how much is going to overtime, how much is going to training outside of this capital outlay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Other questions? Mr. Riley, open the floor to you.
Yeah, just real quickly, I'll send this over to council right now, but we have it allocated $29,170 for a Stow officer and Stow sergeant for personnel time, and then 6,689 for training. But I'll send this over so you have this spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Other questions? Yes, Mrs. Coffey.
Just a comment, and the GPS, I think that's a wise thing just because you have so many accidents from chases. So I think that's a wise thing to have. But what are the various political subdivisions referenced with the MOU?
It involves Stow, Cuyahoga Falls, Mogador, and Talmadge, in addition to Lakemore, which was the primary agency that applied for the grant.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilwoman Coffey. Any other questions? All right, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-061 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda.
Mr. Feldman,
Yes, sir.
before you get to the next two items, I just wanted to make a point of order
Yep.
regarding the next two items, and I just want to refer you. It's been brought to my attention. Obviously, it's been overlooked on all of our parts, but Rule 8.1 of our council rules under non-legislative business. Specifically, it says an affirmative vote of at least 4 members of council shall be required for the approval of any non-legislative business of council. Council may approve non-legislative business items at either a council meeting or during a committee of the whole meeting. Examples of all non-legislative business includes, but is not limited to, appointments of confirmations, appointments to boards and commissions, and the approval of hirings. The hirings, these should be really in committee of the whole. All members of council should be able to weigh in on it requires 4 votes. But if it's under the finance committee, only 4 select members of council get to weigh in on determining whether somebody gets hired. So I would make a motion to move items 5L and 5M onto the committee of the whole agenda, because pursuant to the council rules, that's where they belong.
Yep, I'm looking at council rules. It's exactly what you said. So we will, just a reminder, Mrs. Matra, we'll make
Just because
sure-
it requires 4 votes, and
We
clearly we only
understand.
have 3 members on the committee tonight, so by our very rules, it wouldn't even pass. So
Understood. So we'll move that on to, so we've got a motion to.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. I don't think we need any more discussion. I believe you're exactly correct, Mr. McIntyre. So any discussion? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? All right, we will move both of those, and we appreciate the reminder. All right, now comes the time in the meeting when we ask for comments from the audience. Should you wish to make any comments, please raise your hand relative to the Finance Committee agenda. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? We are adjourned. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. at 6:45 PM, February 6, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka,
Here.
Feldman,
Here.
Herman,
Here.
Coffee,
Here.
Baranek, McIntyre,
Here.
Rio.
Present.
We have before us the minutes from the January 23rd, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Excuse me. Opposed? Those minutes stand approved. Law Director's report. Mr. Riley.
Nothing to report, but happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Riley? Seeing none. Consideration of business items. Mr. Wren, and then I believe Mr. Riley, you want to comment too. We're going to go comments before we, that's okay? If I do it that way? Yeah. Yeah. Ordinance 25-044 entitled Border Control. So, Mr. Wren.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Border Control was incrementally raised last year, and the administration was told that incrementally was the way that everyone was most comfortable with doing this. So we are doing the same. We are requesting the same this year to go from $25,000 to $40,000 for full council approval. When looking at this, I asked the clerks for how many ordinances we did in 2024. We did 248. Neighboring communities or nearby communities, I should say. Brecksville did 90, Talmadge did 93, Cuyahoga Falls did 116. So while the expense of the purchase is being looked at, the time spent on individuals in the administration getting the quotes, writing the legislation, doing the letters for council, that has to be weighed in as well. We are hopefully none of us got into the business to write memos. We're hopefully here to make a difference. And all the time we spend doing legislation for some things that are, they may meet the threshold for the dollar figures, but you know, the gas bill, the electric bill, things like that, they're going to get paid every year. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Riley for any additional comments he has.
No, nothing else to add.
Mr. Riley, let me open the floor to you.
I have nothing else to add from what Mr. Wren said.
Okay, before I open the floor to council members, we've heard a lot about inflation tonight. And in my preparation for this ordinance, I did some calculating, and I appreciate you correcting me, Mr. Riley, on the inflation on what we've been paying. But I know I'm right on this number, 25,000 with 22% inflation on that number equals 67,000. I appreciate Mr. Wren's comments about going in increments. I think that's important. We do know inflation is real. And then a 15% inflation rate on 25,000, I'm just using that number because that's in the legislation, is 50,000. So we're not even approaching the inflation rate, but as questions I asked earlier about, why are we taking a huge percentage to increase, I think apply here. So I appreciate your work on this. I think we are elected officials that have oversight. I'm not trying to say we don't. We do, and we should, as Mr. McIntyre pointed out a little earlier. But I also believe there's some trust that and some government efficiency where, we're not talking about postage and gas. So I appreciate it. Let me open up the floor to the rest of the council. Yes, Councilwoman
I understand the argument on both sides of this, so I I struggled with it a little bit, but for me, it's not a trust thing. I think our administration, I think our Lisa Jarvis in purchasing, I think our finance department, I spoke with them earlier today. I think they're all doing an excellent job, and I think that's evident by our numbers, our reduction in debt, and our carryover fund is growing, and I'm very happy with our numbers, and I think the city is doing great. So I just think, I know it's extra work, and that's why I oscillated on this a little bit, but I think it's worthwhile work because we are doing a good job. So I think why not continue that? And looking at other cities, I looked at Brunswick and Hudson are both at 25 grand, and I don't think 25 grand is a small amount of money. I think it's an easy place for residents to look to see what our expenditures are. I think bidding out purchases over 1,000 is wise. So that's just where I'm at.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Other comments? Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what Ms. Coffey said. That's what we're here, and it's our job, is to craft policy, to have fiscal oversight. It's not about us. It has nothing to do with trust. And this is not a knock on this administration or previous administrations, but when you look at the history of the Board of Control, the expenditures that are in question aren't the gas bill or the phone bill. There's been other projects that have come through that where history has shown they've broken up projects into multiple projects just to skirt around coming to council. We've had hirings before where they bring them under Board of Control limits and then they come back and ask council for more money. So it's not that I don't trust that, but it has nothing to do with paying the gas bill, which is a standard. We do these things every year. That's why they always say yes. But a reduction in legislation doesn't mean it's our job to be here. To go from 240 pieces to 230 pieces, we're not going to have less meetings from it. So it's not that we're being less efficient. 90% of the legislation we write is boilerplate. Most of the sections are boilerplate. It ain't like somebody's crafting existing language. A lot of this stuff is just contract renewals. Language is the same. Or for amending a codified ordinance, we're just copying and pasting things. So nobody's sitting there pounding the keyboard, typing all this up as words go. I mean, I write my own legislation. You can copy and paste straight from American Legal Publishing and put it in and spend a little bit of time formatting. So for me, it's worth, as Ms. Coffey said, it's worth the extra work. Having that oversight and everything else, it's not about trust. It's just that's what we're here to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. We open the floor up to other council comments. Mr. Herman?
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. I completely agree that we need oversight, and we see discrepancies like the one that Mr. McIntyre pointed out earlier, where an estimate was originally given to council for $400,000, and a project ended up costing more than $900,000. I think at the very least, council should be kept in the loop on things like that. But even that would not have been, situations like that are not prevented by having such a low limit for items that go through Board of Control to also be approved by council. And for the vast majority of the things that we do discuss, that we have discussed over the past year that I've been on council, and since we last had this discussion about whether to raise the limit, it still feels to me like a lot of these items that come before us would more appropriately be decisions made by the Board of Controls, because they are very routine, because it feels like we are micromanaging a country club every time that we have to buy equipment for the golf course or pop to sell there and things like that. These are very routine expenses, the vast majority of them. So I think that it would be appropriate for us to have limits that are more similar to what the other cities around us have.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Other comments? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to move ordinance 25-044 onto tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Item B, ordinance 25-058. I'd like to have discussion first. Mr. Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. This request is to amend the general offenses code to increase the fines for public abatement or public nuisance abatement. So the way that would work is basically just doubling the fines. Currently, the first offense for a public nuisance, which would be, that would include tall grass, obstructing a sidewalk, leaving junk and debris out by the sidewalk. First offense is $0. Second is 50, then it's 100, then 150 for the fourth and subsequent. We're proposing to, again, just double that. First offense would be started at $50. Second would be $100, third $200, and fourth would be $300. The purpose of increasing is to discourage the number of abatements that we have to do, specifically for tall grass. Probably 95% of these abatements that we do are for tall grass. The other ones are, leaving trash out by the sidewalk or branches hanging over the sidewalk that we have to get trimmed down. So about 95% of this is for tall grass. Unfortunately, we're seeing some properties just use this as their lawn service, and we want to decrease that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. I'm going to open the floor up, but I want to make one comment. Every time I was reading this in preparation for tonight's council meeting, I always thought of the Genevieve Graham corner. Man, did it take us forever to get that guy, to whoever it was, the property owner, to clean that whole area up. I drive down that Genevieve a lot, and it was a long time coming. So I think when you increase fees, I think people start to pay attention. So that's my comment. I'll open the floor up to other comments from council members. Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. I don't disagree with, obviously members in the community utilizing this as their lawn service, because that seems to be the most, I would assume, the zoning enforcement probably has, how many tall grass complaints do we handle in a year?
I think 2024 was, we abated tall grass about 220 times.
And so with these fines, are we collecting? What's the return rate, or what's the collection rate of the fines assessed?
It's minimal. The people that actually pay the fee as we bill them, it's minimal. Most of them get assessed to their taxes, so we get them when they pay their taxes, which is usually the year after. They get billed the amount that the lawn service charges, and then the administrative fee on top of that.
Okay. So I don't have issues with this. I mean, I do have some issues with this. And I not only looked at this section, but it's what I looked at, and then I looked at the whole section of what is this, 523, right? There's a lot of, what we're doing here, I think, is the same thing that was done with the zoning code over a lot of years, right? Where past legislative bodies, administrative bodies, they went in and they looked at specific sections that they felt were bad instead of looking at it holistically, and then they chopped it up and looked at it. Like right now, there's, I think it's 523.99 that talks about the penalty. If you could I think you could be charged with a minor misdemeanor or a misdemeanor of the third or fourth degree. So at what point, we're just going to, the way this is written, we're just going to continue to fine them 300 if they, are we going to give them any kind of due process? There's got to be an end point to sit there and just fine somebody to death. If you're not getting it after the fourth try, it's not fining them. It's not obviously working either. So, I think we need to look at this whole section and see how it applies. I mean, I looked at other cities. I don't know why this is in general offenses, like the city of Hudson has it in their housing and zoning code, right? Because it's more suited in there, right? But that's neither here nor there. I think we need to look at this from top down, not just looking at this section. I agree that I get a lot of calls and a lot of complaints, as well as you guys do, but sitting there finding, I don't see an end to this. All I see is we're just going to continue finding $300 if they reach that. But it ultimately doesn't sound like it's solving the problem. I think we need to just take a step back. I would ask that we leave this in committee and look at it. I'd be willing to sit down and work and kind of give you my thoughts looking at the beginning down to the end of the penalty and see where that end result is. Somebody's got to, if they're not doing it, then we need to bring them into either the administrative hearing board. But at this point, it says a minor misdemeanor or misdemeanor of the fourth degree. Mr. Riley, you can probably answer. Does that mean that they would have to go appear at Stow Municipal Court for that?
They could, because the administrative hearing board has authority to hear these type of cases. We tend to not utilize the municipal court, but we can. And we have a weekly meeting between the zoning and the law department to go over each offense that's out there that's open to determine whether or not this is a remedy that the administrative hearing board can take, or we need to take it to the actual municipal court to enforce it.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're getting, so like I look at it as if we're getting, I would assume by Mr. Collins' statement, we're getting the same repeat offenders every year. Right? It doesn't matter. It clearly is evident that they're using. But if this is the continual method to do that, I think I just don't see an end in sight with just continually finding. I think we need to look at the whole 523 and see when somebody could. I mean, you got to give them due process. You got to be able to, what if somebody, when you look at the notification process, how many certified letters do we send out every year for nuisances?
I'd have to look into that, but I know for tall grass abatement, I don't think it requires a certified.
I thought it said in under 523, all of it requires to post it on the door, send it regular mail, and to send it certified mail.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. I know we post on the property, we send it to the property owner and the tenant if the property owner.
So, and my question is there are some people. What if somebody doesn't get it done, gets it done on the 8th day, but there's no appeals process, right? Because it says that they don't have it 7 days, and the city can have it done and assess them,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's the exception and not the, you know what I mean? Somebody comes in and gets it done on the 8th day, but I just don't see where there's a path here where somebody could appeal it, get it done, or any end in sight for the repeat offenders, right? Just continually hitting them with $300. I don't know if that's really the right answer. I'm not saying it's the wrong answer. I just don't know if it's the right answer.
All right. Yes, Mr. Riley.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, and Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm over speaking this. These fines we really only use. You said about 90% of the time on tall grass.
Yeah.
We are using the administrative hearing board, which could fall under this code. We're using that to go after junk and debris, and we have some more finality behind those cases. We do have a couple repeat offenders that we've noticed over the years that correct it when it gets to administrative hearing board and then immediately go back to the same behaviors. And those are the ones we look at for Stow Municipal Court. So I don't want to just overspeak, Zach, but this is mostly for grass.
It is. Yes.
Because the administrative hearing board too, that takes time and it has due process and it has notice requirements. They're sent a letter from the zoning department, they're sent a letter from the planning department, and then they're notified of the violation and their right to a hearing before the administrative hearing board. Then there's a period of time that they can respond to that. And then there is an actual final penalty that's given by the administrative hearing board. So we wouldn't use the administrative hearing board in a grass situation because the timeline, just the grass would get outrageous by the time we could actually cut. So I'm willing to look at it, but I just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're asking to change here.
Wait a sec. Let me recognize you, Mr. McIntyre. I'm not just going to allow everybody to go back and forth. Mr. Riley, I want to comment on your administrative hearing board. You are, for some reason, I watched it and I didn't mean to. I was clicking, trying to find stuff on, I think I was looking for a planning commission meeting, and I found it. You are more than fair with due process on the administrative hearing board. I'm sitting there watching going, please find him. Please find him. And you were more than fair. So I'm going to get back to Mr. McIntyre, but I think when abatement fees are set too low, compliant property owners, the lawn mowers regularly subsidize the non-compliant ones. So I'm all for increasing fees because now we take money away and reduce services for the compliant ones and everybody in the community. So I think it promotes fairness. I think we're a little low, but that's my opinion, and we'll go from there. Mr. McIntyre.
I just want to be clear. I mean, this cost, whether you say it's mostly for tall grass, it's related to all public nuisances under this section. So it's not, I appreciate tall grass is the most thing, but if I have junk, the fine is the same under this code. This is not just related to tall grass, correct? Tall grass under the 523 section refers you back to the cost of abatement, refers you back to 52309, but all of it refers you back to 523. That's the cost of the abatement of a public nuisance, because a public nuisance is defined more than just tall grass, shrubs and bushes, a tree, a planted bush, roots of trees, grass in excess. There's more than just tall grass. So all of this falls back to this section, right? But my thing is when you look down at the penalty, whoever violates this is guilty of a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. At what point in time does that come into account? And I don't see that here. That's the true penalty, is with whoever violates this chapter is guilty of a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. It doesn't seem, while that's in here, that's the ultimate penalty, but why aren't we pursuing this then? on the repeat offenders, right? I guess maybe that's how you look at it, looking at it from that perspective. The repeat offenders, but you can't just single out repeat offenders. It's either a violation of this provision, whether it's once, twice, 3, 4 times. That's the penalty under this law. So I think that's why we should take a step back and look at the whole section and fix it from that perspective. But I've taken up enough time on this topic. I appreciate Mr. Feldman. You can open up to anyone else.
No problem. Other comments? Councilwoman Coffey.
From speaking with Mr. Cowan today about the why about it, people, utilizing the service to have their lawn mowed, it's obviously not what the city is for and what we're trying to avoid. So I think this is a reasonable attempt to do that. My only thing is I would like to amend it so that the first offense, just because is not included in this like it was previously, I'm okay with raising the second, third, and fourth offenses. I think that is a good idea to try to stop what's going on. But the first offense, I've had residents that were out of town or said they didn't get the notice. And so I think for that, obviously they'd have to pay the abatement fees of getting their lawn mowed or whatever, but I don't want to put an additional fee on them, and then by that time they would definitely be aware by the second offense. So I would make a motion to amend this to take that out, which would be line 55, line 54, 55, and 56, starting at a fine of $50 shall be added to the abatement performed within any calendar year, and then also the first offense in the table.
Second.
Mrs. Mottram, are you good on the amendment? Okay. Can you repeat, Mrs. Coffey,
Yes.
please? Okay. Yep.
So just removing, beginning at line 54, it says a fine of $50 shall be added to any abatement performed on any property subject to this code within any calendar year. And then it's also
So
the
you're
first,
striking that, I think is.
striking that,
language.
yes.
Is that right, Mr. Real? I believe it's
That's what
struck.
she's asking for, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first offense in the table, the $50, and then leaving the rest the same.
So you're striking the first offense as $50?
Yes.
So should we say $0? In the table, the $50 should become $0.
Is that what it previously said? Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So leaving leaving that in the table then, the first offense, and just changing it to $0.
Okay, we've got an amendment. Mrs. Mottram, you good on the amendment? Yes. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Any more discussion? Yes, Mr. Real.
So I just have a question for Zach. So the fine comes into play after an inspector has come out to the property, after the property has been posted, and then after a period of non-compliance, and then we go out and mow the property. So that's when the fine takes effect, right?
Yep, it's after they mow, after the contractor sends us the bill, and then we assess the fine on top of that.
Okay.
Other discussion?
So
yes, Mr. Herman.
Yes, the reason I seconded is because I've heard similar concerns from residents over time in that they say that they received this scary letter from the city that says that they have to comply or else they'll be fined, and that they won't receive that letter until like the day before they have to comply. And so like my understanding was that first offense serves as basically a warning to them who may have been ignorant, or we go through periods where this was a concern over the summer when we had heat waves and there was lots of tall grass, and they put a lot of pressure on older people who might have health problems if they were to go out and try to cut it and things like that. And so I would agree with the sentiment that there should be some flexibility in sort of giving a warning, but I also want to understand, like, from what Mr. Real is saying, do they have a warning and an appropriate warning before it reaches that first offense, or would it basically be $50 from the get-go? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Other comments? Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Mr. Cowan, in the notification process, it says, posting a notice of violation in a conspicuous manner. what is that? Where is that? Do you guys have a standard conspicuous spot that the zoning enforcement officer is supposed to place those for any type of nuisance violation?
Yeah, we'll post those at the front of the property near the driveway. Yeah, so we have stakes that they post, and they're about 3 feet tall. They post them by the driveway.
Okay, so it's not that you post it on the door and it blows off with the wind and they say I never got it.
No,
There's
it's stapled on.
Unless they don't live there, there's no way they can't see it when they pull in the driveway.
They are laminated, stapled on the stake, and pounded in the ground.
Okay. I mean, I support the amendment. I have no problem with that. I just think the whole section needs to be looked at holistically because I don't see an end in it. You know, for if you just keep going and doing it, what's the end? You know, down at the bottom there's a penalty, but if this is the only route we're taking, then let's repeal this section of the thing because we're not going to. You know, there is a penalty in place, but it doesn't seem like we're enforcing a penalty. That's why I say we should take a step back, look at the whole thing, and craft it that way. So we're not doing effectively what has been done in the zoning code over the years, right? Taking and looking at it in little chunks, making minor changes here and here, but not looking what effect that may have on down parts of the codified or other areas of the codified. So, but I do support the amendment. I have no issues with the amendment.
Other comments? I saw some hands up. Mrs. Coffey?
I was just going to ask, do you see when it goes up to when it went up to the higher amounts, did people begin being compliant or did you see a reduction with the higher rates?
We're talking about under our, like once they get to the third and fourth, I have to look through our counts. Some of them drop off after the third one, but others, they just continue on and have sometimes 9, 10 mows throughout the year.
This is significantly higher, so hopefully that will, help with that.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the amended version on ordinance 25.
All those in favor of the amendment.
All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
No.
That passes, correct? All right, I'd like to move along and make a motion that we move ordinance 25, the amended version, 25-058, onto tonight's council agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed?
No.
That will appear on tonight's council agenda. All right, we're going to take the motions. Mrs. Mottram, Mr. McIntyre was correct. We're going to go C, D, E, and then we're going to go to the finance ones. You good with that? Yep. Okay, Mr. Mayor, item C.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. This is an appointment, Donna Richmond, as you can see, to the Senior Citizens Commission. It would begin immediately and end actually next year. It's a filling of a vacancy, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions to the mayor? Do I have a motion to appoint Donna Richmond to the Senior Citizens Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Congratulations to Donna being appointed to the Senior Citizens Commission. Item D.
Okay, we actually have two. We have Eric Miller and George Urban. Both of these people are more than qualified, and Zach did interview and talk to each and every one of them, or both of them, and he was very satisfied with what he's seen and their questions and what their knowledge was. So between Zach and I, I'd be very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cowan, any other comments? Having spoken to both of these appointees, soon to be appointees?
No, just happy to have them on the BZA. I think they're very excited to get on there and learn and be a part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to?
Mr. Feldman.
Yes.
I just, a question. Obviously, in some of these,
I'm sorry, pass you up.
or obviously BZA and Planning Commission are probably two of the biggest commissions boards that we have. Obviously, they take up the concerns and issues. What about these two applicants? What was the most what was the biggest thing experience-wise that stood out to you as to why they're being brought to us for confirmation today? Because of how important, Mr. Cowan, I'm asking you this question. What was it? You said you spoke to both of them, correct? What was the biggest between both of these applicants? What was their part of their experience that stood out to you that made them the best candidate for these two positions?
I think I can't remember which one. I don't have their resumes in front of me, but I think one of them had experience in the building field and reviewing plans and being involved in that process. And the biggest thing is they're just looking forward to being involved in the community. They want to learn how our processes work, and they are interested in volunteering for us.
I understand that. I'm asking what was the qualification? You told me one worked in plan review. What was the other? What was the other one as far as their experience? What stuck out to you the most? That's why you said I would recommend them for this board.
So one was, let's see, one was in the IT field.
The one was in the IT field, and the other one worked for Xerox. So that's
Yep.
why my question is what about their experience stuck out to you the most that said these two are the most qualified to serve on the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals?
Okay, it's the two applicants that we had for these roles.
The two you presented to us.
Yes.
The two that are before us today.
Yep. It's the two that we received.
Yep. That's the only two that you received.
Yep. Lisa, yeah.
So we have. So are we? Don't we have applications on file? Don't we keep applications on file for people that have filled out for boards and commissions and there was no person that was interested in BZA from past applications?
That's how it was selected.
Yeah, I think these were pulled from past applicants.
Brooke keeps those on file, and has also too an answer I know from Mr. Urban. He has traveled extensively over 25 years. When I spoke with him, he's traveled, when I say that, worldwide, of different things of what he has seen in different countries, in different areas, as far as zoning and things like that. And I feel he brings really a breath of fresh air because he's seen a lot of things in many different countries. In fact, he's probably traveled the whole world and what works, what doesn't work. And that was what stuck out to me with Mr. Urban. Yeah. And then, of course, Eric had the engineering.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, I mean, these are the people, I was just curious, I mean, the application. Yeah. I see the one application, these are from previous years that you guys went and pulled out of the file cabinet. Both of these applications were? Okay. Yeah, because I see Mr. Urban filled out his application just about 2 weeks ago, I think on the 19th of 2025. So, but that's all. I just wanted to make sure I understood what about this, because there's a lot of issues that come before this board to make sure that we have the best candidates out there that actually have understanding in building and zoning practice. While I can appreciate somebody that travels the world, that doesn't qualify them to sit there and serve on an appeals board for zoning and building appeals. Obviously, we've had a member of this community stand in front of this council all the time to say the issues that they've had with planning, zoning, and building departments. So that's why I want to make sure that we have the right people in there to hear these appeals when they come before them. So thank you.
So, Mr. Cowan, real quick, I'll throw it back over to you. Mr. Miller will be replacing Mr. Savasta, who was on the board for a long time.
Yes.
And Mr. Urban will be replacing Mrs. Sikora, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. You wanted to comment?
Yeah, just want to add, when we taking these people, one of the biggest things is just make sure that they are interested in this and they want to learn about the process. And what we do when we onboard them, we set them up with a training course online to make sure that they understand the process and how boards and commissions work and what their role is. We also meet with them during the first couple months to kind of explain the zoning code, what their role is, explain some of the variances that we get. So we make sure that they're prepared when they come on the board.
So you got some onboarding, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I served on the Building and Zoning Appeals. I wish I would have had some onboarding. I might be, like Mr. McIntyre was talking about, not really qualified to sit on that board at that time. Yes. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Item D, do I have a motion to appoint Eric Miller to the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals, the Ward 4
So
representative?
moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Congratulations to Mr. Miller. Do I have a motion to appoint George Urban to the Zoning and Building Appeals Board, Ward 3?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Congratulations to Mr. Urban. Now, let's move to appreciate you citing rules of council, Mr. McIntyre, 8.1. We'll move item L from the Finance Committee onto item F on the Committee of the Whole. Chief Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. First, I would like to give a shout out to Lieutenant Tim Jewell, who's working his final shift with the fire department as we speak. Firefighter Jewell began at Stow on May 7th of 2001. He's been an officer for almost 12 years after his promotion in March of 2014. He has served on the Summit County Hazmat team. He's our go-to guy for our internal records management system and also our mobile data solutions. Lieutenant Jewell is going to be promoted to Assistant Chief Jewell in a few weeks, working for the Olmsted Township Fire Department. You might recall that last summer we had another lieutenant leave, and he went to become the chief of Olmsted Township Fire Department. And I'm not saying that he might have done a little bit of a proselyting here, but I do believe that might have happened. And he knows talent, and he is going to borrow his Tim as his talent up there. So we're going to miss him dearly. He's served us for 23.75 years today. And he came as one of the initial hires from the levy of 2000. And we really appreciate all the work that he's done for us. He's a good friend. I've known him before we both got on the department here. He started out his career up at Valley Fire Department working alongside my wife. Sorry, Tim. But he knows her well, and they were both firefighters up there many years ago. With his resignation, along with his resignation, we also have another pending resignation that is coming up, and so we would like to be able to replace both these firefighters with 2 new hires. We do have an active list. We're going to be doing some interviews at the end of this month. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Stone. I appreciate Mr. Jewell and his work. I worked closely with him. He coached football for us, freshman level, for a long time. Good man and a good firefighter. So other questions or comments for the chief? Seeing none, do I have a motion to hire 2 firefighters?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, get them in the queue, Chief Stone. We appreciate it. Make sure we know Mr. Jewell. We appreciate his work. You can let him know. So, Mr. Wren, item G.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. This is to hire a specialist in the building maintenance division in 2025. It was included in the 2025 operating budget. As a reminder, our building maintenance team, we have about 81 structures that we oversee, and we're taking on 2 major facilities. We are at the courthouse more than we've ever been, including today when we had an internal water line burst, and obviously the community center. So this would help us try and keep up with the workload. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wren. We appreciate it. We sunk enough money in that community center. I hope we don't have to be over there too much.
Yeah.
Hope we've updated that thing. So questions, comments for Mr. Wren? Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Mr. Wren, my question is, obviously I know this is included in the budget, but back in November, Ms. Sinatra gave like her annual report on staffing 24 and what was anticipated. There was, what was in that report was a Secretary 2 replacement due to retirement. 1, is that retirement already taken place? And 2, is it your intent to not backfill that retirement, but rather fill it with somebody who's actually doing the maintenance side of things rather than the administrative side of things? In her report, there was a Secretary 2 replacement. You were looking to replace that position.
We formerly had administrative personnel doing some building maintenance type work that retired.
That's right. Yes.
And that was the position
Just
in her
wanted to jog
report.
his memory. Yes,
Yeah.
That you guys were looking to replace.
The Secretary 2 thing threw me off.
That's what it said in her report. So that's
Absolutely. So yes, we had an administrative personnel doing some building maintenance type work. That person did retire, and as far as I know, there are no plans to replace that position. We'd like to hire this building maintenance position instead.
That was my question. I saw that in the thing, but the position you're referencing was in the capital or the budget for this year. That's why I saw the confusion. That's why I was.
Yes, yeah, we have a company doing the cleaning at safety now.
You're saying we're spending more time in the courthouse than we ever have?
Yeah.
I guess, what do you attribute that to? Was the courthouse contracting out their own repairs when they needed it and not utilizing city building maintenance?
Sometimes just not doing those repairs.
Okay. Do you anticipate spending a lot more time over at the court moving forward?
I just know that I've spoken to Judge Coates more in the past several months than I ever spoke to Judge Hoover in my time here. So she's expressed her intent to use our city staff more over at that facility. Like I said, we had a water line to a drinking fountain that just didn't shut off. And so we had to call in Syrup Pro. We had some flooding on the first floor over there. But my entire building maintenance crew was over there addressing that situation just this morning. We definitely, she knows, the judge knows, and we've had this conversation, we're not equipped to be the only maintenance aspects over there. We farm out, like the HVAC goes to K Company and things like that. And we included their grass cutting and our grass cutting with all our other facilities to get a discount, hopefully, for them. We've also taken on the plowing of the parking lot over there with our crew. So we just know that we're going to be over there definitely more than we have been in the past.
Okay, and do you have any concerns of what, obviously with that being something new that hasn't happened in the city probably since the courthouse moved here to Stow, how is that going to decrease the level of service to the residents here for the other facilities that they use more frequently than they use the courthouse, right? The courthouse is a select demographic that goes there, or you're there for a specific reason so do you anticipate having issues or seeing a level of service change on the facilities here that are used daily?
Not if this position is approved by city council. I mean, this will increase my specialist by 25% in the department. So it's having one more person when you only have 3 specialists right now is a huge step forward.
How will this be reflected in the budgets moving forward for that, as far as like the court's budget versus ours? Is there going to be a decrease in that and an increase in ours because we're looking at it more on our side? Or
no, I mean, it's
all coming from the same general fund, but it
all comes from the same general fund, and our guys don't charge by the hour. Like if they're at safety, we're not going to charge police and fire. It's a city facility that we have to take care of.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to hire a specialist in building maintenance?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That motion passes. Next item on the agenda, I'd like to make a motion that we recess to executive session for the appointment or compensation of a public employee, 121.22G1.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
McIntyre, Rio.
Yes.
We are now in executive session. We are back from executive session where we discussed the appointment compensation of a public employee, 121.22G1. We had one item that came out of executive session. I would ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
An ordinance confirming the mayor's appointment of Samantha Arnold as Human Resource Generalist of the City of Stow, establishing compensation for said appointee and declaring an emergency.
Do I have a motion to move that on to tonight's council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That will appear on tonight's council agenda. Now comes the time in the meeting where we ask for comments from the audience. Should you wish to make any comments, please raise your hand. Anyone wishing to make any comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Maybe it is.
I would like to call to order the regular city council meeting of February 6, 2025 at 7:48 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
Here.
Feldman?
Here.
Herman?
Here.
Coffee? Here. Baranek? McIntyre?
Here.
Reel?
Present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is prayer and pledge of allegiance. Prior to the prayer, which I am up for, I would like us to take a moment of silence for LaToya Philpott, and then I'll go right into the prayer, and then we'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today with humble hearts, lifting up this community that has faced sorrow and loss in recent weeks with the passing of Jimmy Mashburn and LaToya Philpott. We ask for your peace and comfort to surround the families and friends who are grieving. May your presence bring healing and strength to those in our school and community who need it most. Lord, we also seek your guidance as we work together as a council of elected officials. Grant us the wisdom to listen to the voices of our residents, to truly understand their concerns, and to act in ways that reflect the best interests of all. Help us to be united in teamwork, to support one another, and to make decisions with compassion and integrity that benefit the city of Stow. In Jesus' name, amen. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item, proclamations and commendations. Mayor Probonik, we have none, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. We have before us the minutes from the January 23rd regular city council meeting.
Move to approve as circulated.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Now comes the time in the meeting where we're asked for comments from the audience. Do we have anybody that wants to make comments? Seeing none. Mayor's report, Mr. Probonic.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Going and riding on your sentiments for LaToya Philpott, I would like to remind everybody here in this room this evening and also to our listening public, this Sunday at 1 o'clock, we will have a vigil for LaToya Philpott that will be held at the new Stow Community / Senior Center, and everyone is invited. Tragic, went to the funeral, and I know Mr. Feldman was there also too, on Tuesday. Tragic situation that did not have to occur. And as a community, I always believe that we come together for both the good and the bad. And unfortunately, it's the bad on Sunday, but it's something that we do for our residents. Also, too, Sue Model is retiring. So Sue has given a lot of great service to our and knowledge to our Stow community. I know different times I've gone to different meetings with urban forestry, not just in our city, but also two cities that surround us in the county. And Sue is very revered individual, and I wish Sue nothing but the best. For also to Jimmy Mashburn next Wednesday, if you're out and about, and this will be coming out tomorrow, and then also to on our website and Facebook page. They are doing a fundraiser. It's like a dime to donate, and these places are going to go ahead and participate. So I would invite people to go ahead and visit these places next Wednesday. It runs all day. They'll come up with different ways that they want to donate to this Jimmy Mashburn Fund. Jenny's Desserts, Stow Dairy Queen, Wing Warehouse, Handles, Papa John Pizza, and 4 locations, which include Monroe Falls McDonald's. So I appreciate each and every one of you for supporting this great effort, for supporting this great teacher and coach, and prayers go out also to Jimmy's family. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate your support in our community, as I stated, when we face some sorrow and grieving. So thank you for being a light during those times. Comments or questions for the mayor? I just have one, Mr. Mayor, and looking at, and I appreciate Sonia putting this together. State of the City address is March 6th. And I know I've talked to some council members. You don't have to be word for word, but we'd like you to hit the highlights for us.
So we're already, we're almost all ready. Linda Narstead does a phenomenal job of gathering all the information once we get it from all of our departments, which we have done. We're putting it together as of any other year that we've presented. I know council will look back and say all the great things that this administration and council have achieved together, and looking forward to making that presentation.
Well, appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Any old business to come before council? Mr. McIntyre, how are you doing on your Operation Valentine?
I mean, we are counting Valentines. I think at this point in time, we're upwards of, in our counting process, I think we're over 8,000. So we still receive some through the mail. I picked up the last box here today. So
I think the school was pretty much on board. I hope they gave you.
We received something that appeared to come from as many that were in it. I think it came from every school in the district. It showed up on our front porch.
Well, that's a nice operation. We appreciate you doing that.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Real quick, I forgot one thing. I would like to thank the residents that was also organized by our resident, Katerina Reitz, who actually organized a donation type thing for snacks and so forth for our snowplow drivers. You can still see some of the cards and different artwork that the students did for them, but on behalf, and I know I talked to Mr. Brooker, I appreciate all the residents for appreciating our plow crew, which has really seriously worked very hard this year, and they enjoyed very much the treats that were supplied by our residents. So I forgot about that, but it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. Moving on to new business. I would like to introduce ordinance 25-62 and ask the clerk to read it by its title.
25-62, an ordinance confirming the mayor's appointment of Samantha Arnold as Human Resource Generalist of the City of Stow, establishing compensation for said appointee and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules. Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Baranek? McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. On to,
Mr. President?
yes, ma'am.
I move
Yes,
to
sir.
excuse the absence of Jonathan Baranek.
Second.
Moved and seconded to excuse the absence of Councilman Baranek. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? His absence is excused. Thank you, Mr. Reel. I'd like to make a motion to remove Resolution 24-242 from the table. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? It is removed from the table. I'd like to make a motion to reintroduce Resolution 24-242 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2024-242, and resolution of the City Council of the City of Stow establishing the protocols and actions to be taken upon the passing of elected officials and or former mayor of the City of Stow.
That will constitute its second reading. I know some council members had some clarifications or small little amendments or things they wanted. So I just ask that you bring that to us prior to February 20th, and we will then have it on the agenda for its third reading. I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance 25-043 and ask clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-43, an ordinance amending COS Chapter 901 entitled Excavations, particularly Section 901.01 entitled Permit Required, and amending COS Chapter 965 entitled Permit Fees and Cost and Bonding Requirements, particularly Section 965.01 entitled Fees.
That will constitute its second reading. On to item C. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-44 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-44, an ordinance amending COS Chapter 173 entitled Board of Control.
I move to suspend the rules.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
No.
I believe the rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. All those in favor, discussion. Thank you. Got ahead of myself. Discussion, Mr. Herman.
Yeah, so the reason I voted against suspending the rules was because I thought it would be wise to wait for Mr. Baranek to participate in the conversation, particularly given his previous experience in finance and in his position as our finance committee chair. Also because he also routinely votes no against suspending the rules when other members of council aren't here, so I think it would only be fair to him.
Appreciate your explanation. Any other discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
No.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
No.
McIntyre?
No.
Reel.
No.
That ordinance does not pass. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-048 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-048, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with KTS Equipment, Inc. for the purchase of a SG-75 stump grinder for the use by the Urban Forestry Department without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item E, I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-049 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-49, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Moorbark LLC for the purchase of a 2025 Moorbark BVR-16 brush chipper for the use of Urban Forestry Department without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-050 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-50, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2025-03, particularly redirecting the authorization of expenditures with Ravel's Turf and Tractor Company LLC to Deere and Company for the purchase of a John Deere Pro Grader 2028 and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-051 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-51, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Quality IP LLC for a one-year subscription to Microsoft 365 without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Reel.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item H. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-052 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-052, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Vance Outdoors, Inc. for the handgun replacement program without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? One question, Captain Snavely. What happens to the old guns? And the city owns them, correct?
That's correct. They'll be traded in for some trade-in value, and then there's actually a program in place where the officers get first crack at buying them back if they have sentimental connection, which I do for the one I've carried on my hip for 25 years. So the officers will get a chance to buy them from Vance's, but from the city's purposes, there's a trade-in allowance that will offset the costs of the new firearms purchase.
Thank you, Captain. Any other items, questions for Captain Snape's name?
Good question.
Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yoga,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Real.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce item I, ordinance 25-053, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-053, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Hall Public Safety Company for cruiser equipment and installation without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee? McIntyre.
Yes.
Real.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its term. I'd like to introduce item J, ordinance 25-054, and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-054, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with the city of Macedonia for prisoner housing at Macedonia Jail without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yoka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Real.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item K, I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-055 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-055, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Clavin Ford Lincoln, Inc. for general maintenance of the police department fleet without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Baranek? Oh, I'm
That-
sorry.
Real.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Real.
Yes.
We good on the?
Yes. I'm just
Sounds
reading
good.
the list.
Yes. That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item L, I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-056 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-056, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a contract with Municipal Emergency Services LLC for equipment maintenance and replacement for the fire department without the necessity of public bids and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yoka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Real.
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item M, I'd like to introduce resolution 25-057 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-057, a resolution pursuant to COS 11906 entitled Progress and Closure of Capital Improvement Projects, closing of all completed projects and redirecting any remaining funds and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Fioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Real.
Yes.
That resolution passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item N, I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-058 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-058, an ordinance amending COS Chapter 523 entitled Nuisance Abatement Code, particularly Section 523.09 entitled Cost of Abatement of a Public Nuisance and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? The rules are suspended. I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Real?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item O, I'd like to introduce resolution 25-059 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-059, and resolution granting site plan approval and conditional zoning certificate and certain variances to the City of Stow applicant for the conditional use of a public utility substation located at Darrow Road, parcel number 56-16944 in the City of Stow, Ohio.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Real?
Yes.
That resolution passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-060 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-60, an ordinance amending Chapter 703 COS entitled Ambulances and Emergency Medical Services, particularly Section 703.16, therefore entitled Fees, and declaring an emergency.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
I move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion?
I said one thing.
Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Feldman. I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna support this evening, and for three reasons. One, during a committee of the whole meeting, it was put out to us that this is not gonna change. If these increase the level of service, if this doesn't pass, the level of service that our emergency service technicians provide isn't gonna decrease. It's not gonna cause a deficit in operations of the fire departments in the city of Stow. And third, and most importantly, there's already a levy that the taxpayers pay to fund some of the operations, including EMS, for the city of Stow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Any other items or discussion items? Yes, Mr. Herman.
Yeah, I don't understand why our city wouldn't charge fees that are paid by insurance companies to keep up with the costs that we expend in accordance with the similar costs that are faced by cities around us, and especially when we have the soft billing model to make sure that there isn't an undue burden on our residents. I feel like it's fiscally responsible to keep the fees increasing in accordance with the costs.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mrs. Coffey?
I do agree on that. I was initially hesitant when I saw the increase in fees, but I do like the structure of it where it's not a cost to our residents. So for that reason, I will be supporting it.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'm seeing none. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
No.
Real?
No.
I believe that passes with 4, correct?
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Reel. That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. I'd like to introduce ordinance 25-061 and ask the clerk to please read it by its title.
2025-61, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to make and enter into a into a memorandum of understanding with various political divisions within Summit County to enter into a multi-departmental initiative entitled United Front, Enhancing Suburban Safety Throughout Cross-Agency Collaboration, authorizing the mayor to enter agreements for the purchase of equipment and receive reimbursement for said funds and declaring an emergency.
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. McIntyre.
Captain Stavely, real quick, I know it was talked about earlier where Stow is not the pass-through. The grant, whoever the agency that wrote the grant would essentially be the pass-through, right? Our funds would come through, was it the Village of Lakemore?
Correct.
We're not the pass-through like we are for like Metro SWAT.
Correct. We'll get reimbursement from the Village of Lakemore.
So we'll, like, when we make this purchase, we're going to expend it and then we're going to submit our expenditure for reimbursement to the Village of Lakemore.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Any other items for discussion or questions, comments? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Bioka?
Yes.
Feldman?
Yes.
Herman?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
McIntyre?
Yes.
Real?
Yes.
That ordinance passes and will take effect according to its terms. Item 11, do I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
It's not this week. It's going to be for the 13th. That it will give you the right to pay them when they come through.
Oh, this is the first week of the, usually we meet the second and fourth Thursday. So I'd like to make a motion for, to authorize the council president to sign the bill listing for February 13th, since we won't be in session that week.
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That passes and we'll sign the bill listing. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Item 12, scheduling committee meetings for the February 20th City Council meeting. Roads and safety.
We'll go ahead and schedule roads and safety.
That's a yes? Did you say? Yep. Public improvements?
No, thank you.
Planning?
Yes.
Am I going too fast, Mrs.
No, I got it.
Okay. Finance, I would assume yes. Committee of the whole, yes. And please note in the minutes the correction that Mr. McIntyre brought up. Make sure on committee of the whole we get motions to hire.
Yes, yes, yeah.
So, all right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? We are adjourned.